南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。That means seeking refuge in the fundamental teaching of Sakyamuni Buddha. The Sutra opening Gatha, the Dhamma infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, to study, and to practice. May we fully understand and realize the Tathagata's true teachings, and you can add meanings. Okay. Somebody asked me why I always recite the Sutra opening Gatha. Why do you think that I recite the opening Gatha every time?
It's paying respect.
Yeah. And also as a reminder how fortunate we are to be able to hear the Dhamma in this lifetime, in this place, in this era, right? It's like there is a saying, with the possibility that we encounter the Dhamma is like a turtle. Have I told that before? A tortoise, rising out from the sea, coming up from the sea and bump into a driftwood, and there's a hole in the driftwood, and his head just peers through the hole. How rare, how much possibility is that? That's how fortunate we are to be able to actually encounter the Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha. What kind of possibility? I mean, I think nobody won the 649? Is 694? What is that lottery? Because we went to Vancouver, right? That day we went to Vancouver, and Everett was driving, and I think I saw on the billboard, nobody win the 649 that week. That's why I knew I didn't follow whether anybody win. Definitely it won't be me because I don't buy lottery tickets. So that the possibility of of hearing the Dhamma is actually very, 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 very little, and I constantly say, me and us being in Chilliwack just don't know why. I just don't know why we are here, but we are here for some reasons. And I for myself, I'm forever grateful that I have encountered, that I have actually studied, and that I have been able to really receive the teachings. But for you guys, I think you are doubly fortunate. You're more fortunate than I am to be able to hear the Dhamma in this place at this time. Really, doubly, triply, or quadruply fortunate to be able to hear this. So that's why in the Mahayana teachings, or when we every time we start chanting or we start reading, we always read the Sutra opening Gatha. Just a reminder how fortunate we are. Okay, and what's the purpose of doing this? And how should we do this? How is now we are able to hear, to study, and to practice, right? We hear, we are studying, then we practice. That's how we should do it. And so what do we get? What's the goal of doing this? Is may we fully understand and realize the teachings of the great wise man. Okay, so that's the goal. That's the result of doing this. All right. So we go back. You're going to get everything in one go because I forgot to animate all my slides. So never mind. So chapter 18 on the Sutra of the 42 chapters. As chapter 18 is called the no mind doctrine. And it's the Buddha said, my doctrine is to be mindful of no mind, to act with non-action, to speak the inexpressible, and to cultivate the non-cultivation. You would think, this sounds really funny, doesn't it? Yeah? And those who understand this are close to the way. Those who are confused are far from it. The way is beyond speech and conception, and nothing can constrain it. To miss this point by a hair's breadth is to lose the way instantly. When I read this the other day, I said, wow, this is so profound. It's very difficult really to grasp onto the meaning of even the first paragraph. My doctrine is to be mindful of no mind, to act with non-action, to speak with the inexpressible, and to cultivate the non-cultivation. So we don't do anything, right? Don't do anything, then we are on the path. He really doesn't mean that. Because we are sentient beings, and we are so used, so attached that there is this inherent existence. So we will think, oh, I'm truly existing. Because of this thought, therefore, we are constantly experiencing feelings, and then we're constantly labeling, this is a pleasant feeling, this is an unpleasant feeling. So in order to get rid of unpleasant feelings, people will say, okay, I take medicines, I go for massage, I rub it, and I put ointments, and as long as I deal with it, then I'll be okay. That unpleasant feeling may go away. But even if it does, sometimes it doesn't go away, people will still feel that, oh, it's okay, I've done something to it. I've done something. But he said right here is the mindful of no mind, to act with non-action, to speak the inexpressible. What do you think what he means in here? I said it's very funny. That's why you all are so quiet. So funny that you're so quiet tonight. Well, no mind, non-action, inexpressible, non-cultivation is to do all this without any kind of intention, especially set up to do it. And also, intention or expectation of any result, quote, my expected results. Yeah. And also is really not doing it for the sake of doing it. So I have seen a lot of people doing things for the sake of doing it. Can you give me any example?
When their heart's not into it, and
Yeah.
they do it for, I don't know, because, hey, look at me, I'm doing it. I don't know.
I've seen a lot of marriages. People get married for the sake of getting married. You agree? And very soon that marriage will just break up. Will just break up. Or if they don't break up, it won't be a happy marriage. Because they don't thoroughly have worked towards a marriage. They just get married because for the sake of getting married. And I've seen quite a bit more so in here than in the East. Very strange. You would think that in the East it's actually more common. Now, no. Maybe in China still, but not as common as here. And yeah, I've seen so many young people just get married for the sake of getting married. Why? Why? I don't know. I'm asking you.
You know what I think it is? I think a lot of it was maybe early TV where we all watched Waltons and we all watched these programs that depicted the perfect marriage and the perfect family. And when we left school, at one time it was sort of expected that the girls would get married and the guys would go to work.
No.
And that was almost an expectation, like that was almost a goal.
No.
I think over the years it's slowly changing, but
Mm.
and I think a lot of that was small town thought processes, because women weren't supposed to be able to go out and work and look after themselves. So they got married.
Mm. Fair. Yeah.
Isn't it sort of like the Western illusion, you know, get the car, get married, get the house,
Yeah. The Western
Yeah.
delusion of a life, right?
do this, do that. But what you really want to do is usually quite far away from the other illusion that's projected all around.
Yeah. I guess so. And also getting married at very young age too, right? So young, 18, 19. So yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand it myself. But you know, very, very reasonable from what you have said just now. So really, for the sake of doing it. And so when we look at this, say for example, when we are actually meditating, we are observing the breath, but we are when we are really grounded and focused, we are actually not observing the breath anymore. But still, we are observing the breath in a way. You know, in the background, you still know that the breath is still there, but you're really not observing the breath. So that is actually to act without non-action and mindful of no mind. You know what I mean? So that's really, really need to come from experience. It's very difficult to actually explain these things. So we have never left the breath, but we are still observing it, or we are not observing it. So when we are in that place, we actually transcend from watching a breath or feeling a breath to actually not feeling the breath, but still we haven't left from the awareness of the existence of a breath. Yeah. So that is what he meant. That's the path. So the Buddha said, those who actually understand is close to the way, because it is not something that we need to prove from the outside world. Yeah, we cannot prove it from the outside world. And it is in our own minds to attain, to prove that. Okay, so if we look from the outside world for these proofs, when we will never get it. And we are actually walking further away. So the Buddha said these are actually very difficult to put into words. The words just because cannot express and cannot explain it well. As I said last week, when we walk on a trail and we look at the trail, so we walk that trail, then we follow that trail. But is that a real path that you should follow through? Not necessarily. Is that path going to take you to the end to the end where you can reach the goal? Not necessarily, because my path will be very, very different from yours. If you're walking on my path, you may never get to the goal, right? Because we all have a different trail. We all have a different path. Very obvious, isn't it? I've got no hair. I'm wearing a robe. I've renounced mundane life for 25 years. So if you follow my path, my trail, then all of you have to shave off your head and put on the robe and take on these monastic rules. Or if I look at your trail and I follow your trail, then I will get married and have children. I would be all in a mess. I'm sure I'll be in a mess, definitely. Yes, thank you. Very reassuring. Yeah, it never ends, right? Yeah. So you know, so we have to, in order to transcend ourselves, we need to see that there are actually ways to achieve this. And we have, in the midst of calamities, in the midst of distractions, we should be able, or we would still be able to find a trail and look at that trail and say, let me go down this way. So that means we are not stubbornly attached to whatever that is right now, right here, and I needed to follow it through here because this is what I see. But yeah, I look at the tripod from this angle. I see all this Soliger T145 from this end. But if I look at it from here, then I thought, oh, I only see maybe parts of the words. I have to guess what would the words be. If I look at the tripod from where Gary is, he can see those words. Even the tripod is standing here right now, right? Yes, it's the way it is, but still, there are so many perspectives we can see. And what kind of path that we are actually going to choose depends on our mindset at that moment. And how does that affect, on what actually affects our mindset? Your emotions?
Experience.
Your experience?
Knowledge.
Your knowledge? Those all will affect your judgment, right? And your decision and how to take up this trail. What happens? Why would you have this kind of emotions? Why would you have this kind of knowledge? Why would you have this kind of experience at this moment of life? Why?
Karma.
Hey, very good.
See, Monday night's really good.
Yeah, everybody is so fresh after the weekend's rest, right? Yeah, so that's it. So really, the karma actually puts us where we are and how we see things and how we deal with things. So of course, we cannot always blame the karma. We cannot always say, oh, it's you responsible. The karma that's responsible. Yes, it is the karma that's responsible. But remind you, whatever that you decide right now is actually a karma for the future. Isn't it? Karma is cause and effect, so simple. Okay, what you decide right now depends on the karma from the past, but what you're doing right now is actually paves the karma for the future. So therefore, he said nothing can constrain it because one already transcends. So we need to transcend is think out of the box. See out of your attachment. Don't allow all these attachment, don't allow all these subjective opinions to actually affect how you choose your path. And somebody have asked me a question, I think last week. One of my students from Hong Kong, he said, my friend wanted to kill himself. I said, oh. I said, And he said, what can I do, Sifu? I said, really, nothing much you can do. You can talk to him and you can advise him, and it really depends on how he's going to pick his way. He said, why would people commit suicide? I said, well, two reasons. One is now they cannot find a way out of their difficulty. This is now at the present moment. And hopefully this thought is a fresh thought, okay? It's the first ever thought of killing himself. Secondly, there may be possibility that he has done that in the past life. And this habit coming up over and over again. You don't know how many times he has done this in the past. And this habit becomes so strong when things don't work out. The first thing he will think of is, I'll kill myself. He said it's so horrible, it's so horrifying because he's really planning it out. I said, planning out what? Buying insurance and everything? He said, no, he planning out like when he's going to do it, how he's going to do it, and what he's going to do to the family and everything. He plans it out and try to work it out. I said, planning is planning. I don't know whether he will work it, he will really take on that plan, but I mean, those are only the reasons that I can think of. Hopefully it's a fresh thought in this lifetime. And he's not really reinforcing from the old thoughts, from the old habits. But a lot of time when people actually committed suicide, these are actually old karma that actually repeating itself over and over again. Can we transcend that? Can we actually transform our mind at that time? Of course we can. If we are aware that we are going that path and we know that is a wrong path, then we are mindful. We are mindful that my mind is right here. I need to put my mind right here. It's just it's so simple, but very difficult to do. Very difficult. You need to have a lot of good friends around you, good Dhamma brothers, sisters around you to support. Okay, so you know, a dialogue, a situation can be heard of, seen from many points of view. Like I said, like the tripod. But we can actually, as a person, we can actually follow our own habitual behavior, and then we could be so biased because we can only see it from one angle. And if we could start to actually comprehend things from different angles and seeing it from more angles, we will become more humble. Actually, we'll be more humble, and we will actually be less attached. Mindful of no mind, that means you're actually become more and more objective, more and more aware. Okay? So we as a practitioner, we would be, hopefully, we will be able to realize and transcend whatever that we see in the mundane world being a duality, whether it's black or white, good or bad, correct and incorrect. And as I always say, there are so many sides to a thing that we cannot always point the fingers to one side. Even somebody who has murdered somebody. Okay, like the other, like in Abbotsford, right? Somebody stabbed two girls, one died and the other didn't die. You would think that, wow, this is such a bad guy. Why would he just randomly stab people? Why? It's so bad, so bad. He needs to be, punished. Yes, he needs to be punished. But we don't know. We don't know the past causes, and we don't know the past effects. But we are only judging on the result, on the consequence of the past causes right now. This is the consequence from the past causes. But we are always judging, just seeing the consequence right now. We are always judging. So the Buddha said, always have more compassion for the murderer than those who have been murdered. So that this cycle could be broken eventually. Otherwise, we will always have pity or compassion for those who have been killed. And then the murderer would be getting angry and more angry, right? Then the next realm of life, they come back again. They would bump into each other, I tell you. I can reassure you that they bump into each other in any way. And the whole play will start again. So if we can actually able to realize and transcend this judgment on this duality, and then we will have like more open heart and more objective in seeing and in hearing and to interpret things. And if we could do that, we are actually closer, as the Buddha said, we are closer to the path than any time. So my Sifu always said, transforming or transcending our mind is so easy. It's so easy. It's just like flip on the light switch. You've got light. Flip it off. It's dark. Or just flip on. Oh, just flip your hand over, and it's the palm. And flip it over. It's the top of the hand. He said it's so easy. If you want to change your thought, transform yourself. It's so easy, just like flipping on this light switch. But it's so difficult. It's just like climbing up to the sky. Not by the plane, not by the rocket, but you walking up to the sky, right? It's so easy, but yet it's very difficult because our mind tricks us all the time. And the old habits actually hinder us, stop us from changing. Yeah? No mind, and to act with no action, that means no intended action to any intended results. Okay? Chapter 18. I'm not speeding. Okay, chapter 19. He said, meditate on the elusive and the real. I changed this paragraph a little bit. The Buddha said, observe heaven and hell, heaven and earth, and contemplate impermanence. Observe the world and contemplate impermanence. Gaining spiritual enlightenment, you will find wisdom. We call Bodhi. With this understanding, one swiftly attains the way. What I change is right here, gaining spiritual enlightenment, you will find wisdom. Because what I see from the original script, I myself don't understand it. So I thought I used the Chinese script actually and translated from the Chinese script. The Buddha said, observe heaven and earth and contemplate impermanence. So what are the impermanence phenomena of heaven and earth? Oh yeah, that's a very good answer. Oh, yeah, so good.
Always changing.
Yeah, what change? What changes in heaven? What changes in earth? On earth?
People change. Air changes.
Air change, people change, rain or shine, rise or fall.
Weather changes.
4 seasons, yeah, weather changes, yeah. And coming and going, and the earth changing, right? The ocean rising in tides and ebbs, the sun comes and goes. Did you guys watch the documentary by Leonardo Caprio,
Yes.
Before the Flood, is free by National Geographic. Go on it, look, read, watch it. Very inspiring documentary, seeing how the heaven and earth actually are changing.
It's called Before the Flood.
Before the Flood. Yeah, it's just came out on the 30th of October. Of course, before that there is another very good documentary by him. Is it by him? No, it's not by him. It's The Cowspiracy. Not by him. But yeah. Cowspiracy. Don't worry, you get to watch it on Dhamma sharing. Cowspiracy. Yeah. So actually, in that movie, it shows you how impermanent this earth is, and all the changes is not necessarily natural changes. A lot of changes are caused by mankind. The loss of the rainforest in Indonesia, because they want palm oil. Why would they want palm oil? Because look at our food, everything has palm oil. The lay chips, yeah, the potato chips, all these instant noodles, right? And all these pretzels, they are all made with palm oil. Horrifying, really horrifying scene from Indonesia. They lost 50%, 80% of the rainforest because of the palm trees. And he went to India. It was so funny. He talked with the India ecologist, and the woman said, you know what? In here, the electricity that we use in the family, the electricity in United States that you use in United States is able to feed 18 families in here. In one household in USA can feed 80 households in India. He doesn't have anything to say, right? Of course, I mean, he wasn't offended, but that's the fact. Because our houses are bigger and our houses are more fancy. And we have so many appliances, even the TV, right? Oh yes, this is too big. We need a flat screen. And a flat screen, this is too small. We need how many inches? 60, 80 inches flat screen. And we throw away the 60 inches when the 80 inches come out in the market. So watch it Before the Flood. Yeah. Yeah, so this is actually, I think we should have an open discussion on this documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
It was really moving.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
quite upsetting.
So in here, this impermanence in the heaven and the earth, and we have to be constantly aware of the impermanent nature of this heaven and earth. And he said, observe the world and contemplate impermanence. The world, you can actually contemplate impermanence. The world actually represents into a perspective. One perspective is the world in the aspect of time. And the other perspective is the aspect of the time is like past, present, and future, right? The three phases of time in the world. And then the other perspective is the space of the world. So when we talk about the space of the world, we normally talk about the directions, right? So how many directions?
10.
Good. Which 10? all on the compass.
North, south, east, west, southeast, south, third, and then up.
And then up and down, right? Yeah, so good. So that is the space. So it's spanning along that 10 directions and spanning along that time frame. Okay? So the 10 directions is like this, and the time is like this: past, present, and future. So, as you know, I know that the world, yes?
Can the world be within this body too? Because the Buddha said that
Of course,
this world is within this.
of course, of course. Yeah, of course, of course.
I mean, the mind and the body.
Yeah. Of course, but you can actually also said that too. Of course, the Buddha said that too. But in here, he actually meant this physical one. Okay. Of course, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that because in this world there are actually two parts. There is this material part. Yeah, the material part is all these mountains and everything, and then the other part is the sentient part. The sentient part is us. We are sentient beings. Yeah, and all the animals are sentient beings. So the world is made up by these material part is all the mountains and river and everything, and us as sentient beings in also in this whole world. So you can actually contemplate the impermanence in this world as a material world, and also you can contemplate the impermanence in the sentient being. That is us as one of the sentient beings. Okay, Radhika? Yeah. So as here, of course, we know it is impermanent. It cannot be permanent. But we need to be constantly aware of this fact, because a lot of times our mind actually tricks us. Our mind actually fools us, because always at the back of our mind there is this wishful thinking that I am forever will be alive. So that's why when we have somebody like sick in the family, we will start to get very depressed. Or when we are sick, or when we are diagnosed to have maybe terminal illness, and why me? Why me? When you ask why me, that means in the back of your mind, you have a thought that I will never be sick. Why does it happen to me right now? Right? So we do have thoughts like that. We have to constantly be aware. These thoughts get actually lurking around all the time. Why would they lurk around? Because somehow we can talk about impermanence, but we don't actually understand, or we don't actually, how to put it into words? Understand, really, comprehend, understand.
We don't feel it.
We do feel it. We do feel it. Well, impermanence. We do feel it, but you know what I mean?
Denial.
Yeah, it's so, yeah. Not really complete denial. It's just that we don't see it. We know, yeah, it's impermanent. My hair is getting gray, right? That's what the reporter asked Obama. Your hair is getting gray. Don't. I'm still in office for the next three months. No, that was just a joke. But you know, the hair is getting gray. Yes, that's just impermanent. And
this observation is also relevant because I think if you really believe that world is impermanent, then you have less craving.
yes, of course.
And so you don't get attached to things
Yeah, of
as
course.
if you attend to,
Yeah,
impermanent things. On
but we know, we do know, but we don't know.
of course.
Because
This is
when
it,
we
this is
be,
it, then that.
yeah, because when we do things, we forget. We forget about impermanence and all completely, right? So we need to be constantly reminded of this fact, this impermanence in our life, impermanence in our thoughts. And otherwise we'll be constantly trapped in the cycles of samsara, the cycles of birth and death, constantly trapped. Not necessarily afterlife, but in this lifetime too. Yeah. So then he said, gaining spiritual enlightenment, you will find wisdom. You don't really need to find wisdom. Wisdom naturally comes when you actually gain spiritual enlightenment. And what he means by spiritual enlightenment, that means that we actually reach that stage of a complete pure mind. There is no more attachments. Yeah. And also there's no more sankhara. We completely abolish all this. Remember the sandy and the dusty afflictions that I talked about last week? Did I talk about that last week? Yeah. The views and the concepts. Remember the afflictions of the wrong view and wrong concepts? So gaining enlightenment is like seeing our Buddha nature, and we will reach there when we have wisdom. And when we reach there, we will naturally have wisdom. And because of wisdom, we will reach there. So, all right. So it's like a mutual thing. So this Bodhi is actually the heart for us to practice. And because of the Bodhi is actually we having this heart to practice, to seek this ultimate liberation. Okay, so that's why we need to constantly strengthen this mind to practice, this mind to liberation. We need to constantly strengthen this we call Bodhi mind. Okay, so if we don't, then this Bodhi is like a shining globe or shining pearl being wrapped in a lot of layers, so you cannot see the light from outside. What are all these wraps? Our craving, our illusion, our delusion, our ignorance, our concepts, our views, all these afflictions being wrapped. And so the pearl is still shining inside, right? That's why our Buddha nature is always shining inside. This pure mind is always shining inside, but we wrap it up with so much garbage. So every time we become aware of this impermanence, every time we don't react to this impermanence, every time we become aware that we need to bring ourselves back here because impermanence, and you remove a little layer, maybe little thread of the wrap. Eventually, or hopefully, some of these wraps will be like, you actually unwrap them. You will start to see light coming through, and eventually, when all this being removed, you see this big globe of light, and that's the Bodhi mind. That's the Buddha mind. So we have to try to constantly turn this consciousness, the eye consciousness, the ear consciousness, the nose consciousness, the tongue consciousness, the body consciousness, and the mind consciousness into a tool that you can actually cultivate wisdom. Otherwise, this consciousness, if we don't train them, if we are not aware, these are where These are the problems. Where do we get all these afflictions from?
Attachment.
Attachment through our ears, attachment through our eyes, attachment through our body. Oh, so nice, I like this. Oh, so pretty, I wear this. All these attachment, right? So we can turn this all these faculties. We can use all these faculties. We should be using all these faculties because this is what we have. These are the tools. I don't know whether you remember when I talk about the what did I talk about? I think it's the 12 links of dependent origination. We turn all these faculties, all this consciousness into wisdom, different kind of wisdom. We can talk about that later on again if you want. Refresh that memory. It's actually very, very important that we become aware how we can actually turn all this into wisdom. It's by developing this really sharp and aware mind, and not to follow what this I consciousness bring into the mind and how the mind react to this I consciousness. Then you cut that link there. Sever. It's not easy, I tell you. This not very really. So when we are able to see through whatever that we have experienced, whatever we act is because of this mind, however we act or react is because of how this mind directed us, then there's a possibility that we can come out. If we don't see how this mind is directing us, there's never a possibility to come out. That is why a habit pattern is so difficult to kick. Why? Because the mind is so much ingrained in that habit. Without a sharp mind, you cannot see and you cannot actually pull yourself from that habit. It's just like addiction. It's a habit. Addicting to that feeling, right? And why is it so difficult? Because it's so strong. One is so easily pulled into that. Pulling it out, pulling oneself out from there is so difficult. But never impossible. But difficult. Yeah. Okay? So when we are able to do that, to see that and to able to pull ourselves from that, then we'll be walking on the path very soon. Very soon. Not quite yet, but very soon. We are just on the edge of the path. Chapter 20. He said the self is empty. The Buddha said, one should be mindful of the four great elements of the body. Each of them has a name, but an intrinsic self cannot be found. Since the self is empty, it is illusionary. Is it illusory or illusionary? Illusory? This is correct? Okay. Actually, we can see this chapter together with the chapter before, being impermanence. Yeah. Chapter 18. So the four great elements, he said, mindful of the four great elements of the body. That's the physical makeup of the body, right? So which four, please?
Earth, water, air.
Earth, water, air, and fire. Okay, good, very good. So what is the nature of all of these four great elements? Nature of existence. Impermanent, ever changing, degenerate, regenerate, coming, going, right? So he said they do have a name, but when they exist together and constantly changing in relationship with each other, can you really just name an earth being an earth? No, when the earth, it becomes like a lot of water in it, you give it another name, it's called mud. When the earth is without water, it's called sand. Can we say that? When the earth becomes very hard and big, we call it a mountain. Right? So he said each of them has a name, but an intrinsic self cannot be found. Why would you think that he said this? Intrinsic self, that means
self-existing and permanent.
yeah. That's so obvious, really. How can it be self-existing? How can the earth be self-existing? It's impossible, right? What holds the earth together?
Rotation, gravity.
Gravity. And what else? In the earth. If the sand is dry, you got lumps of sand. Yeah. So what holds the earth together? The water. Yeah, right? The water holds the earth together. The water has a cohesion factor. H2O. Right? Right? So the earth is being held together by water. So they complement each other. Okay? But it's a constantly changing relationship, isn't it? It is a constantly changing relationship between these four elements. In the summer, the heat is more in the forest, on the mountain. When the mountain is high and exposed, you will have more fire. If the sun is strong, right? In the winter, it may have less fire, more cold. Temperature will be colder. Yeah. And you can see up in the mountain, in the winter, on the top, the snow would be like ice. On the bottom, the snow would be like snow, fluffy. Why? Because of the temperature difference. So they're constantly changing. Along the mountain, you can see constant changes through there. And the relationship between the ice and the mountains constantly change according to the fire and also the water element. So there is no one non-changing entity in any of these four elements. Okay? So what he said is, whatever the outward experience that we experience with the outside world, whatever that we experience in here, a lot of times we don't have control over it. Agree? We do good. So, but a lot of time, a lot of people will think that there is a delusion. Yes, the physical is changing, but our mind is, I can still in control. Do you think so? I don't think so. I don't think so. And the mind is also constantly changing, isn't it? It's also impermanence in that way. And so if the mind is, if we can have the control of the mind, then why would we get angry sometimes? We don't want to be angry, we want to be happy. Because we cannot control our mind. So simple. We cannot control our mind. That's why we get angry, we get upset, we get depressed. Right? If we have the control, then how? Well, everybody wants to be happy. There won't be any killings anymore. There won't be any war anymore, right? If we have all the control. So is it possible that we can have control of all our afflictions? Is it really? Impossible. But we can actually control our attitude towards the afflictions. When we have afflictions, how can we actually deal with them? That's very, very important. Okay, so what he wants us to know from here is that even we, our own existence is conditioned. Because this physical body is made up by these four great elements. And because of these four great elements are impermanent, so our physical existence is impermanent. Is impermanent. So knowing these are all impermanent, then why do we still attach? Because in the back of the mind, we just don't want to die, that's all. We just don't want to die. That's actually, there's a illusion a lot of people carry. We just don't want to die. I don't want to die. But when really somebody is dying and you say, well, you're dying, I don't want to die. Because one doesn't really realize these are all mirage. Mirage on the road. Bubbles when the rain drops onto the pond. They all come, they all go. Those are all illusions. Can you grasp on the bubble and hold the bubble in your hand? It's impossible. Can you ask the mirage to stay there so that you can wash your hand or dampen your cloth to clean the windows? It's impossible. It's a mirage. It's an illusion, right? So when we know these are all mirage, then we have to wake up and try to detach ourselves from all these illusions. If we can do this, no matter what we experience, we will still be able to be calm and stable. Like a mirror can reflect a chaotic scene. A mirror can reflect a beautiful scene. A mirror can reflect whatever that is right in front of it. But the mirror won't change its own identity. The constituents will not change. It will still stay as a mirror. It won't be like, if it's chaotic, it won't be like wobbly. If it's beautiful right in front of it, the mirror won't be more beautiful. It remains the same. We need to train our mind to become a mirror like that. It's difficult, isn't it? But not impossible. Okay? All right? Great. Chapter 20. 3 chapters in one night. Well, these are all very short chapters. And of course, you can go very, very exaggerated with this. But so next week, we will still have Dhamma sharing, but I won't be teaching because I'll be in merit teaching the 10-day course. So still Dhamma sharing every Tuesday night. Okay. I've told Eva when I'm not here, then you have Jeopardy, then you have Conspiracy, and then you have, what's that monkey's name?
Another Dhamma.
Another Dhamma. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. Okay. Great. So let us dedicate our merits. To bring our awareness back to this body. Feeling this body ever changing. with this experience. We allow a good thought to arise in our mind for all the benefits that I gather from hearing the words of the Buddha. May I share with all beings, human, non-human, visible, invisible, big or small, far or near. May they be free of enmity. May they be free of miseries. May they start to live in a world with brightness, warmth, experience love and peace. May we wish more and more people will start to encounter the words of the Buddha, to study, to experience, and to help them to liberate themselves from their own sufferings, miseries, and be happy and be peaceful. Good. See you when I return.